Happy Thursday, everybody. Welcome back to The Last Symptom. I'm Brian Barnett, the creator and host of The Last Symptom. I've got a special treat for you all today. A friend of mine has agreed to be interviewed for the show. She's somebody I'm real proud of. She's been working real hard, and I thought that a lot of you all would benefit from hearing how far she's come, some of her the obstacles that she's overcome, and those sorts of things. She was a hard case. And here she is doing so well. So I'm really grateful that she's agreed to do this today. Before we get that started, let's go ahead and do the disclaimer and the musical introduction, and we'll be right back when that ends. I'm Brian Barnett. I'm just a regular guy. I'm not a doctor. I have no legal license in any field of psychology. But I did live a large part of my life with borderline personality disorder unknowingly. And I really did rid myself of the disorder completely and permanently. Through that, I've become an expert on issues involving emotional health. I accept no responsibility whatsoever for your feelings, thoughts, behaviors, decisions, and actions, including your decision to watch or listen to this show at all. But I do hope you might benefit yourself from the insights I share. All right, so my guest today, you're not going to see her. You're just going to see me, but you're going to hear her. And we're going to call her Ava. And don't worry, she's not on the FBI's most wanted list or anything like that. She just would like her family's privacy. And so that's why we're going to call her Ava. That's why you're not going to see her. And so you're just going to have to stare at my handsome mug all through this show. But you'll get to hear her really nice voice. And so let me go ahead and introduce her. Hello, Ava. How are you doing today?
Good. How are you?
I'm good. I'm really happy that you're willing to do this with me. We've been talking for a while, and you've had a lot of growth. To get us started, just tell us a little bit about yourself, in a way that preserves your privacy.
Sure. I just for sake of like the whole process, I'm in my like early 40s. And I have a husband and I have two children. Yeah, and I have a dog.
You live out in the western United States, is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
What are some of your passions?
Passions, dogs and fashion, learning, and I really like the dictionary. I like to look through the dictionary and find new words that I can incorporate into my vocabulary.
Oh my goodness, I must give you a headache every time you listen to me making up words and screwing up words and
It's fine. It's fine. I somehow translate it in my brain, so it works out.
so husband and kids living out west. Um, will you tell me, and will you tell all of us, how you come across the last symptom?
Sure. There was somebody that's very close to me that had sent me a few of your videos, but it was not unsolicited. It was solicited. It was an individual that me and this individual had for many years been on a path to try and help me figure out some of the things that were going on with me. And so it was a combined effort, that was occurring. And so the videos were wanted that were sent to me.
And what was your reaction to the? You were just telling me this the other day. I found this really nice, honest, and nice. What was your reaction to me at the beginning?
My reaction to you. Well, it was twofold. I thought the videos were amazing. The two or three videos were amazing. And I thought that maybe we were related somehow. just like living these parallel lives. And so it was really, really refreshing to hear the videos that were sent to me, because I couldn't believe how well you articulated and dug down into just a variety of things that had gone on in my own life that I wasn't able to pinpoint exactly what was occurring.
Didn't you have a negative reaction to the idea of having conversations with a guy?
100%. I wanted nothing to do with calling you. I I thought your videos were amazing. I thought all your information was amazing. I did not ever want to. I wanted to just do the videos and not ever talk to you because you're a man. And no offense taken, or I hope no offense is taken. Because yeah, I did not want to take. I did not want to take literally face to face real feedback from a man. That was a huge aversion. So when I started out in this process, I listened probably to your videos, you know, 4 months before I ever called you, maybe 6 months. And if I come out with a different timeline, it was just because I actually was able to pinpoint it. So I'm ballparking before I ever called you, because yeah, I didn't really want anything to do with calling you.
There
I'm
was.
glad I did.
Oh, thank you for putting that in there.
Sorry about that.
No, I feel like it's going pretty well. Our conversations. There was something interesting that you told me that at the beginning, this all seemed recovery, all seemed pretty overwhelming to you, and you come up with I thought, a pretty brilliant method for convincing yourself that what you were doing was not impossible. Would you mind sharing that with all of us?
So I thought I was a lost cause, and I thought there was no helping me. And even with the videos and the articles and the resources that you provide, as much as all of them made sense and clicked together for me, I had real apprehension about myself and just thought, great for Brian. He made it through. That's amazing. He's clearly the master at this, but that's just not in my cards. I've done so much in the past, just even leading up to being exposed to the last symptom. And I thought, there's no way. This just happens to everybody else. It's just not going to be what happens to me. So I struggled and I struggled. And one night, maybe about 6 months into listening to the last symptom, I just had like a meltdown on the side of the bed one night and just crying, 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 crying. And I just said out loud, this just isn't for me. I just can't do this. I can't do this. This is not, it's just not for me. Um, and I woke up that morning around 2, 3 in the morning, and I thought to myself, well, I have, I have an option here. I can either just keep going down the path of not being healthy, or I can just, if I'm going to struggle either way, if I'm going to struggle trying to be healthy, or if I'm going to struggle being unhealthy, either way, I'm struggling. So which way do I want to struggle? Which way might get me where I could have some inner peace? And I just meant, at that point, I just thought meant just some inner peace. That was it. That was all of my focus. Just give me a little bit. And I started to look around me, and I started to take a mental note of things in my life that were tasks that I was avoiding intentionally, but it was probably more subconscious. But tasks I just wasn't doing. I would ask somebody else to help me, or I would defer them. And I started making a mental note of them, and I just started trying them. And so one of them was making an omelet. I've not ever been good at making an omelet. And so I just kept making and kept making an omelet. And each time it turned out a little bit better than the last time, but it was never terrific. And then on a call, you told me maybe you should put a lid on it. So so that's what I did. And I put a lid on it, and my omelet came out pretty amazing. I did things like that. I started to take these little things in my life that used to seem impossible or seem that somebody else needed to take care of it. And I started building my self confidence slowly in conjunction with all of my my last symptom work. So these are working parallel. But that's how I started to chip away and gain my confidence that maybe I could. And at that point, I was still skeptical, but maybe I could get myself to a better spot, or at least chip away to be a better spot. But I have lots of examples of that, of things that I took on in my life, decided not to ask somebody else, researched it, or kept asking, kind of talking to certain people about it, and kind of trying a few different things. And then I started to get a higher self-esteem with doing little things around me that I deemed that I couldn't do prior.
And that gave you the confidence to say, well, then this, if those things aren't impossible, then perhaps this work ain't impossible either.
Correct. So at that point, I was like, okay, if I can do some of these things that I haven't been able to do, for 20, 30 years, and I'm with a few failed attempts, I made progress every single time, then maybe I'm not a lost cause. Maybe I can keep chipping away at this.
So you've seen the truth. Then there was an orange slice I did this week where I talked about how a failed objective or failure to achieve a thing is not evidence that the objective itself is impossible. That all that is required most of the time is an adjustment in approach and perspectives and those sorts of things. I think that the omelet example that you give is a really good example of that, because it's something as simple as just putting a lid on the skillet. We talked about this, and I didn't know this because I've never been able to make a good omelet either. So we kind of brainstormed what might you be able to do. You put a lid on the skillet, and it helps cook the top of the omelet. I've talked about that so often in my life. I usually talk about it like in relation to like working on the car or something. I mean, you cannot get a piece to go in or something. You can't get it to go in. And there's two options. You can keep struggling and with the same approach, or you can stop for a second and say, wait a second. What is something I might be able to do differently here that might get me a better result? Let's talk about some of the obstacles you've had in your life.
Sure. Some of the obstacles, the obstacles were really hanging on to my childhood, and things in my childhood that didn't serve me well as a person, and really hanging on to them and using them as a crutch, not intentionally, unknowingly, using them as a crutch to stay where I was, like stay in an unhealthy emotional spot. Another one was just really like realizing that so many people around me are bad at communicating, and I was looking to them for confirmation that I was doing things right. And unfortunately, of course they're going to confirm that you're doing something that you think is right, because they're doing the same wrong thing. So you got two people that are just like confirming each other's wrongs, and you're like, oh, it must be right. So
Well, that's really well said. Yeah, that's really well said.
Breaking free of that. And so that comes into like I'm responsible for me. I can't control anything outside of me. and I'm not looking towards anybody else for validation. So the huge part of me breaking free of that was I'm not looking to anybody else anymore for validation. I find it in myself. And so that was a big one for me, was just breaking off that exterior constant need for validation that I was doing everything correctly when again they were just confirming in hindsight they were just confirming I was doing it wrong. Other obstacles, uh, just not believing in myself was a big one. Thinking that I had tried everything. Other obstacles I can think of were I tried to. Again, this is all like really subconscious in myself that I kind of at first I kind of compartmentalized being healthy and listening to the last symptom as like almost like a subject that you have to learn of, oh, I'm going to go to science class and science classes from 9 to 9:45. Now I'm finished. Now I move on with my day. And so for probably like the first 8 months, that was how I was doing it. It just, as a subject, like, did I listen to my videos today? Did I take some notes? So forth. And then I'm 2 years in now. By the time I've gotten to 2 years, I realized probably about 7, 8 months ago that that's not the way I was going to do it. So this is kind of what you were talking about at the beginning, which is you had to make adjustments. Like if, it doesn't mean your objective is incorrect, just make adjustments to how you're doing it. So I had to adjust how I was doing it. And so now how I do it now I have made huge progress, particularly in the past like 3 months, with some adjustments of how I was viewing my work to be emotionally healthy.
I'm so envious of the way that you're able to say particularly without stumbling over that. Not to take away from the point of what you're making. One thing I really think that you are so voluntarily good at is maintaining focus inward. You have a lot of you don't have any fewer excuses than anybody else to point out at what other people are doing or not doing, and you resist that. You work very hard to resist that. Would you talk to us a little bit about that?
Sure. So just a little backdrop, growing up, that was that I was taught that was a learned behavior. It was a learned behavior that everything is everyone else's fault and they need to do. And I'm not saying this was an intentional taught behavior to me. It was just an attitude that of the caregivers that I picked up on, indirectly or directly, that everything is everyone else's fault. And if everybody else just adjusted this or that or that or this, then I wouldn't do this bad behavior. I wouldn't feel this way. I wouldn't think this way. I wouldn't behave this way. And through my work with the last symptom, just really Brian hammering it into my head with a sledgehammer that you need to focus on yourself, and you're the only control you have over is yourself. I really stewed on that. I sat with that one for a good few weeks before it started to really click. And as soon as I realized that the truth in all of that, that's when I started to be liberated. And you've said, and you can always correct me if I'm inaccurate here, but you've mentioned before that somebody can be in a relationship with an unhealthy person, but they can be emotionally healthy in themselves. And in a relationship, I mean, like in a friendship, a business relationship, so forth. There's many relationships. So I always thought that was a little bonkers. I was like, really? Like, don't they have to completely fall in line with me? And they don't. And I've realized that I'm my own stage, and I only let other people in how I want to let them in. but I'm responsible. When I look at a situation, I have not blamed somebody else. I take ownership of where I could have adjusted, where my thinking was, where my thoughts were, where my actions were. And that person on the other side, I look at them and I just think, okay, this is what I could have done differently. And I really am not piecing them into my vernacular in situations.
So when you've got dealings with somebody that's difficult, um, your focus is really on what's the best way for me to handle myself in this situation.
Yeah. Only
Um,
me. I gave up trying to change and control everyone else to fit what I needed. And instead, I just focused on myself and what do I need in this situation? Do I need to set a boundary? Do I need to do conditions? Do I need to do consequences? Do I need to remove myself? Whatever it may be, I can provide that. I can provide that. One time you told me on the phone, and I about fell off my chair. You said that I was powerful, that I was more powerful than I realized. And I was like, come on, Brian, you are just trying to make me feel good today. And so I got off the call and I really took that and ran with it. And I started documenting in my head all of the things that I have done in my lifetime that have been, even now when I look back at them, extremely challenging. And I started to think, oh, he's not just being nice to me. He really meant that, and I need to think about that. So I carry that with me, and I yeah, about seeing my own power, my and it goes it's so many layers. Everything you say to me has like 20 layers. So like so it's not just that I'm, it's me as a person, but it's also like you're powerful with your actions, your words, your thoughts, how you interact with other people, what you do, what you spend your time doing. Like there's so many ways that you're extremely powerful that do give you peace in situations that in the past I was not able to find peace. So the powerful part all comes into the making of the omelet and to the other tasks that I had said. If you and it's so part of this is like us just constantly deep diving on things. Had you told me I was powerful a year and a half ago, it might have gone in one ear and out the other. But because I had already been, taking all of the lessons and adjusting all of my thoughts in so many different ways, which was, I was making so much stride. When I added in, like the making of the omelets to try and anything that I could to conquer, to give me some type of self-esteem, or not self-esteem, but just some type of like physical, tangible way that I had, conquered something difficult. When you told me that I was powerful, even though at knee jerk, I was like, he's just being nice to me. It again all stacked together. It all built together was like, oh, you know what? He's right. I am powerful. I did work on this task and I conquered it. And I did do this other task and I did it by myself and things like that. So it all came full circle. It all started to build on one of, each block started to build on each other.
yeah, that's nice. It's nice how by coincidence timing was right for that for us to have that conversation.
Yeah.
Because I think back to like early on in my own recovery. I'm sure people said things to me that just went right over my head. And so when the time come and I thought that I heard it for the very first time, it probably wasn't that I heard it for the very first time then. It's probably that just I had grown to be able to hear it at that point. I would think. Well, now, there's... Go.
You
Go
were
ahead.
just always so amazing at at taking my jumble and and packaging it so pretty. So yes, that's what I was trying to say. Like even have you had told me early on that I was powerful, yeah, it just wouldn't have. I wasn't there yet. I wasn't there yet. And you probably told me I was powerful 15 times throughout, this whole 2-year journey so far. And I probably just didn't hear it until the 16th time.
Well, I remember the conversation you're talking about when we had that conversation about you being powerful. I remember some other elements of that conversation too. Um, uh, and I remember that being the overall focus of that whole conversation was I wanted you to stop viewing yourself as powerless and to really start thinking of yourself as powerful. We talked about not not letting life just happen, not letting our lives just happen, but reaching up and grabbing the steering wheel and things like that. Uh, not blaming the world and everybody else for the things we're dealing with and stuff like that, but accepting responsibility. You've done that so well, Ava. But you're even though you're doing so well, your life has not been without regrets, mistakes, adjustments that have continued to have to happen. Is that correct? I mean, it has not been like just rainbows and unicorns every day.
Yes, yeah, I still get frustrated. I still have, yeah, my mess ups. I still do. I think about them differently. My thought process is very different. And because my thought process is different, my feelings are different, and my behaviors are different. So yeah, I think of them very differently. And now I can get through situations in the past that they're the same frustrating situations, but I am at so I wouldn't, I'm at so much more peace, and I am able to keep myself at peace. And it's a huge difference. And I mean, here's the example. I have 2 young kids. Dinner time gets a little crazy. I'm trying to make a homemade meal. I've got two precious children talking to me about different things. Each one's their own, form of communication with me. My sweet husband comes home. There's more noise and he's trying to talk to me, they're trying to talk to him, and everybody's just lapping over each other. And I'm doing my best to cook dinner and clean the kitchen up and focus. And I used to get, uh, I mean, real my jaw would lock. I would just get really frustrated, maybe even probably snappy. uh at everyone, including my husband, who's poor guy is just, trying to talk to me, but I'm getting snappy because I just in my head I'm just like I just want to cook, I just want to do this, I just want to, everything's just slapping at me. Um, that doesn't happen anymore. Let me correct that. All of those things happen. The whole picture I just painted, it still happens. What I do, what I think, how I handle it has 100% changed. Now, all of that stuff is going on. I have certain thoughts that I go in my head. If I have a thought that's not serving me right, it's gone. It's kiboshed. I don't water it. If I change my thoughts, which obviously helps me to keep my feelings in check. And then my behaviors now, I could be in the middle of something and my child comes up and starts talking to me about something, and I either politely ask them to hold on a second or let me, finish stirring this pot or what have you, or I just kneel down and I just start talking in a very kind, calm manner. And it is like a tornado is going on around me. And I am able to keep my thoughts in alignment, and I am able, which that of course affects my feelings and my behaviors. So the tornado still happens. Nothing in my environment changed. Nothing. Only me.
This week or last week, you and I were talking, and we talked about how being emotionally healthy is not where you don't make mistakes or you don't mess up or you don't have regrets. That instead it's the way that you think about or perceive the mistake afterwards. How do you use it? Do do you use it to feel bad about yourself, or do you use it to say, how can I make sure that that doesn't happen again in the future, or it happens less frequently? But I had, I think, pretty seriously described to you about how that's going to continue happening. I mean, you're going to continue making regrets. You're going to continue having moments of mistakes and those sorts of things, and how this is just human. In fact, I think I said to you that if you get to a place where that never happens, where you never say the wrong thing, where you never look back and go, I regret the way I handled that. If you ever reach that point, you will be a perfect person, which is impossible. Meaning, you're never going to get to that place. So we just got to allow for the fact that we're going to make mistakes. We're going to continue making mistakes. The big thing changed in my life was not that I stopped making mistakes. There are mistakes I make a lot less frequently, that's for sure. But the difference really is in how I view the mistake and how I clean it up afterwards, right? One good example is, just like you, I would sit around and think about how much it was the fault of everybody else. Like, if they had done this differently, and if they had done that other thing differently, then I wouldn't have done this. And so I don't do that anymore. I'm quick afterwards to say, this is all on me, and I did not handle that very well. I also don't use it to make myself feel bad, or as it used to be, worse about myself. I make a distinction between the mistake itself and me. So I say, yeah, that thing that is not me, that wasn't so good. So I'm going to do that different, and here's how I'm going to do that. That's a big difference. So anyway, I'm getting off on a tangent there. But I wanted to say, in a minute, I'm going to have you explain to us just how much work you've done. I don't know if you know how much work you've done in comparison to the typical person that I talk to. I would say you are really up there with people who have worked the hardest at these things. We'll get into that in a second. What I want to ask you about right now is, like when you're on a diet, you're going along and you can see the changes, but nobody else can. Like, you can get into a pair of pants that you weren't able to get into before. That's nice. But you really know you're getting somewhere when somebody comes up to you out of the blue and says, hey, it looks like you've been losing weight. When somebody outside of you sees the changes, it's really rewarding, isn't it? Are you willing to tell us about some feedback like that you got here recently?
Yeah, I did. I received that feedback from my husband. I was in the kitchen and he just stopped and hugged me and just told me how much he noticed that I was thinking about things differently, and when he says that, he's talking, he's seeing the results through my behavior, which he can obviously see was a different type of thinking coming out than what was prior. So yeah, he has said to me several times within the past, particularly month or so, that he has seen some really huge changes, and he was very happy for me, which then of course it affects my husband and my children and anybody that comes in contact with me.
How'd you feel about that?
It was interesting. I really, really appreciated the feedback. It was different than before for me. I used to seek outside validation a lot, as though the outside validation created who I am. And I was nothing without that validation, and I was nothing out without their words to pump me up. And as I'm on this journey to emotional health, the compliments and the feedback from those close to me are are absolutely wonderful in a different way. It's almost like I can experience them now for what they really are, which is a really kind, thoughtful gesture that someone took the time out of their busy day to notice. And so it was wonderful and amazing to get the feedback, but at no point did I use it as like, see, okay, see, I'm getting somewhere. See, I told you so. Like, it was never like that. It was very, very different. It's hard for me to explain really, but yeah, it was really different. It was just amazing on its own and very kind on its own. And I viewed it differently than I have in the past.
It just occurred to me that he's probably going to hear this later. So we, so that's not influencing this whatsoever, is it?
I actually didn't think about that.
I thought that was beautiful. I thought it was beautiful that you told me that he did that for you. I thought, man, that must be really rewarding because when you know the real reward is in the actual growth and the actual getting healthy on its own. That outside feedback, though, is so rewarding when it happens. But it didn't happen for you like that overnight. You had to work really hard, and there were months, maybe even years that went by where you were doing work where you were not getting that positive type of outside feedback. Is that right?
100%. Yeah. In fact, the feedback that kept coming back to me was yeah, far from positive feedback. Though I knew the amount of work that I was putting in was substantial. And so that would be frustrating at times. But as soon, one of the lines of demarcation was, you give me your feedback all you want, whomever it is, you do whatever you need to do. You can say what you want. I know how much work I'm doing. I know what's going on in my head. Maybe it's not coming out exactly the way I want it to in my behaviors yet, but there was so much work that had to be done in my attitudes and perceptions. It was so cobwebbed with crap that all of the work was in my head before it could even get out to my actions. So, at first, when I would have some successes and the feedback was, from anyone, it was just meh, that hurt. And then finally, I was like, that's it. No, no, you can't get into my spot. You can have your feedback, you can own it. I'm on my own mission, and it may take me a little more time, but I'm no longer here to prove anything to you. This is my mission, and I'm going to succeed at it, and that's going to be that.
How did you do that? How did you make that shift? And how did you maintain enthusiasm during these periods where you're working so hard and everybody around you is saying, like, you're the same old, same old. I don't see any difference at all. How did you maintain enthusiasm to keep hacking away at this?
Sure. Part of it was my omelet. Part of it was taking on this never-ending omelet story. Part of it was taking on these.
Well, it was the omelet and things like that. There were other small tasks, right?
if somebody really wanted more examples, I'm happy to share other examples. But yes, continuing to on the days when I felt really, really like, just was still feeling not so sure of myself, I would just look around my surroundings and I would say, okay, what task have I been putting off? What thing have I not been doing? I'm going to tackle that next. I'm going to do that next. And so again, it was just this mental list of anytime I attached any type of like emotional health struggle with what in what around me needs done. Does the carpet need shampooed? Does I don't know. I don't know. I can't think of it, things like, does another omelet need to be made?
But small practical things like this.
Yes, yes.
Like you didn't like go out and try to build the Taj Mahal in your backyard. You focused on practical things.
No, started really, really small. Like there were some there were some holes in the wall that the cable guy had made almost 3 years ago, and I've been looking at those holes thinking I need to patch those for 3 years. And last night I stayed up till 10:30, and part of one of the things that I did was I finally patched that stupid hole that the cable guy accidentally made. So, I was like, I'm the one who needs to patch this thing. Just patch it. So I finally patched it. Now it's done. It's 3 years I sat there and stared at that thing, and I just took care of it myself. So those type of things, doing those type of things along the way, the tangible things that I could see that my time, effort, interest resulted in a positive change and resulted in a task being checked off my checklist was a great assistance in me along my emotional health journey.
I love that. I was going to tell you that I'm really good at patching walls, because when I had borderline personality disorder, back when I was unhealthy, I would rent these apartments. I was renting, so I was living in apartments. Never did I leave an apartment without holes in the wall. So I would have to, before I moved out, so that they wouldn't keep my deposit, I would have to patch the walls and paint them and make sure that nobody could tell that I had put my fist through the wall in a moment of rage. Yeah, that's how they got there. In these moments of BPD rage, that's how I would take out my anger. So I got a lot of practice of, like, before moving out of an apartment, like, dadgum, I gotta fix those holes I punched in the wall with spackle and paint and everything like that. Yeah, glad not to be behaving that way anymore. There's people. I talk to a lot of different people. I think this show is going to be so beneficial to so many people. Just like these very practical things that you've done to really get yourself to where you're at here. But I want to tell people that you have not laid around waiting for me to just give you the answers, and you have not just laid around. There's a lot of people I talk to who are lethargic. They're very lethargic. And I can identify with that. I remember going through a period like that where I was depressed and sad and lethargic. Today's Orange Slice is all about how there are people who come to me and they just want me to do all the work, or they want somebody to do all the work for them. And I say, well, you're not ready. You're not ready. And they go off, and I hope that they suffer, not because I like the idea of people suffering, but if suffering leads to good things, then yeah, I would like you to suffer a little bit. And then come back to me, ready to work, and we'll work together. But you've got to be doing more work than I'm doing. Like, I'm not going to do more work for you than you're doing for yourself. That was the whole theme of today's Orange Slice. And, like I say, I think there's a lot of people who come to me with that kind of lethargic attitude. I can say, Ava, that you have never been lethargic. And in all the people that I've talked to over the years, very few, the most successful have acted as you have acted. They really do everything for themselves that they can. And what I mean by that is I have noticed you going through all of the library of all the orange slices. I see your comments. I see the things you like. I see you going through these things. You told me the other day you've gone now to the articles that are on the website. You're reading those articles. You have scheduled regular phone calls with me, and I don't want this to sound like a sales pitch, like, you guys listening or watching, that you just make an appointment with me right away. This is not why I'm saying this. I'm saying it because I've seen the benefits in Ava here. And it's not because she's just been laying around just stewing in things. She's been active. She's been working very hard at this. There is so much information in the library, the Last Symptom library. On our locals group, she's active there. Very few people come in and just eat up. Go through the library. The past 3 years, 4 years, something like that, we've been on this group, this online community, which is at locals, by the way. Let me go ahead and throw that in there. You can join us by going to thelastsymptom.locals.com, or you can download the locals.com app from the App Store, and then just search for The Last Symptom by Brian Barnett within. You can join us that way. Ton of information in there, years worth of information, videos and articles, my thoughts, other people's thoughts, conversations. And Ava she's just going in there, and she's just going through the whole thing every day. I see her liking or viewing or commenting on some of these things that I did 3 years ago and haven't thought about since. But my point is that she's taken advantage of these things. You, Ava, are taking advantage of these things. The live streams. You're always trying to pick up on the live streams, even if you're not there live. You've told me that you try to catch the live stream at a later time that's more convenient for you. Would you mind telling us a little bit about your attitude about this? You wrote a thing the other day about how, well, first of all, let's talk about the value of the phone calls. Where do you place the value of the phone calls you've had with me?
The phone calls are invaluable. That real-time feedback is so critical because what happened to me was I would get kind of stuck in my head. Like, I'm listening to all, the podcasts, I'm reading the articles, I'm doing these things. But again, it's like talking to somebody else that has a bad attitude, and you have a bad attitude, and you're just kind of like confirming each other's bad attitude, and then you think the bad attitude is the right way to do it. If you're just bouncing it off yourself, then you're not really growing, because I wouldn't say you're not really growing. You are growing, but you can stifle yourself, and you can stunt your growth, because I needed that real-time feedback to say, like, oh, okay, well, I see where you're thinking there, and that might make sense in the moment, but let's go over here. Let's see why you're doing this. So all the drilling down is on the phone calls. Like, I wouldn't be where I am right now if I hadn't added in the consistent phone calls, because
it really did seem to take you next level, didn't it? You started, first of all, you started with the podcast, this show. You started with this show, and you were listening to the episodes of this show. You later took the Last Symptom Fundamentals course.
Yes.
Is that right?
Yeah. Do you want me to just briefly go over some of the things that I did prior to the Last Symptom that totally flopped, and then I came in here, and then
sure.
So I had been on this journey to emotional health for a very, very, very long time, and since my early 20s, probably my teens, and even as a child, I thought, I don't know why my feelings function different than everyone around me, which obviously is not true. That's what I thought at the time. So, I tried EMDR, hypnosis, counseling, which I just hated.
What did they do with you in the EMDR? They put things in your hand that buzzed. Is that what they did?
Yeah, paddles. Yeah, they put paddles.
I did that too. Yeah.
You did?
Yeah, very, very early on. It was interesting. And there was a hypnosis effect to it. Like when I come out of it, like it seemed to me like it had just been 5 minutes and it had been an hour. It was soothing, but it didn't address any of the fundamental causes of any of this stuff.
Yeah, it just helped with management of kind of, yeah, a little bit of management.
So EMDR, hypnosis, you did
Counseling, which I hated. I barely did any counseling. I just despised that.
yeah. What's that other one that's DBT? Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, and they all just manage the situations. They give you more management tools to be able to navigate. So, I had thought I had kind of come up with everything I could. Again, somebody close to me sent me your videos. I started out with just watching some videos, and then in July of 2022, I took the fundamentals course, which I thought was terrific. Now I took the fundamentals course twice, but because also you have you have access for 6 months. I don't know, is that still the way it is?
Mm-hmm.
6 months. Okay, so I had 6 months access. So even in that 6 months, I took the fundamentals course, but then I re-listened to quite a few of the videos. Throughout that 6 months. Then my time expired with that, and then I did another had access for another 6 months. So fundamentals course twice. But then as I started to, and I had some phone calls with you. I had like a phone call, maybe, I'm guessing here. I'm just guessing. I wasn't able to pinpoint everything. One after maybe 6 months of 4 to 6 months of listening to the videos. And then I had I had a call with you every, I don't know, 2 to 3 months for a while. And the phone calls were always helpful. I would get off the phone calls and I would think, oh, that was so helpful. That helped me connect the dots between that orange slice, or that article that he wrote, or that description he had on locals, or what he said in that orange, like, it helped me connect the dots. And I started to make progress, and substantial progress. And then I was like, you know what am I doing? Like, I just need to talk to somebody about this and help me, mentor me through this process, because this is not easy. It was hard. It was the most difficult thing I've ever done in my entire life. And I'm telling you, I've done some really tough stuff. And this was the most difficult thing. And I thought I was never going to make it. And the phone calls were what sealed everything together for me and helped me to be able to connect dots. And I at the beginning of this recording, I had said that I used to treat the last symptom as like a science, started studying science, like you go from science class to 9 to 9:45 and then you're done. And so I stopped doing that, and I started, like, it was all that was on my brain. I do about 10 to 15 hours a week of listening to the videos from the last symptom. In addition to, I rewrite my notes almost nightly. I'll rewrite like at least a page of notes. I listen in the car, I listen when I'm doing the dishes. I am always thinking about it. I will wake up in the middle of the night with epiphanies or thoughts going through my head, and I write them down on my notepad. It's on my brain all the time, and every interaction with my husband, with my children, with the grocery store clerk, the gas station guy, it doesn't matter. It's always on my mind. And so I stopped compartmentalizing it like I was studying a subject, and realized this is my new way of life, and this is my new way of thinking. And that's when I started to shift into like overdrive. And I'm telling you what, there's nothing stopping me. I will not stop.
No, I definitely think you're on the way.
Yeah, I'm so I'm so into this, and to me this is captivating. It's turned into I don't like this way of living. I want to be emotionally healthy to literally being captivated. And I can listen to an orange slice of yours now that's 9 minutes, and I will sit there and I will write notes down. And I'm like, I said this to you that I think it was last night on the locals. I said, there are 15 messages in this 9 minute little orange slice that you did. This is astronomical. Like, and that was after me listening like 4 or 5 times to the same orange slice. I'm like, if someone just listens to this once, the odds of you missing all of the in-depth, because all the in-depth stuff that's going on in this video is it's unbelievable.
Subtle.
For lack of a better word,
Subtle stuff, right?
Yeah, it's very subtle. It's very subtle, but because I'm doing so much of this other stuff, this other work, I can pick up on it real fast. And I'm like, oh, there's this message, there's that, there's this. So I'm telling people, some of these podcasts that you do, I have listened to some of the hour and 20-minute podcasts. There are about 5 or 6 of them I can think of off the top of my head. I've listened to them each. One of them was 6 times. So that's 6 hours of one hour podcast. And I didn't listen to it like, sit down in 6 hours straight. It'd be like I would listen to it, and 4 days later, I was like, you know what? I think that there's more to that. I understand this one part, but there's more to that. So I would go back and I would go back and I would go back. And I just kept going back. And again, this is what I'm talking about. It was all consuming, super captivating. And I have made unbelievable progress. And the part of it now is when I get in these situations that are frustrating or could have gone better on my end, I think to myself, all right, well, I see where you got off track. You got off track because you were already thinking this, and this led to this, and this led to that thought. So I'm able to go back through my dots, I'm thinking in the mindset of a connect the dot paper. So I can go back through my dots and I can see where my beginning thought started to get off track, which just dominoed me all the way down to a behavior that should be changed.
This is what you're describing. Now, I didn't have the last symptom. It hadn't been invented yet. But it being on your mind all the time, that is exactly, you just described exactly my recovery efforts early on. I was living life, but it was on my mind all the time. Me trying to figure these things out, seeing how they fit together and all that. So to see you mimicking the same spirit of my recovery is really exciting for me. I'd say the calls, so these scheduled calls that you've had with me, yeah. I would like to just emphasize to the audience the reason why you've had so much, why they were so useful is because you were already doing work. You were already working. You were already thinking of these things and taking advantage of the things that we had, the different resources that I offered. Yeah, if you had come into the call, and not doing all that work on your own time out there in your life, and you were just coming, and we were having a call every week, it would not be as effective. They've been so effective because you've been doing far more than I've been doing. You've been doing your work, and I really have enjoyed our phone calls. But I just want to stress that to the audience that if you're hoping to mimic a similar outcome, listen to all the work she's putting in. This is not like OCD stuff. This is just fascination with what's right there ready for her to learn. That's all that this is. It's not an obsession thing.
No,
Yeah,
it's fun. No, it's just fun because the more, I mean, it's like anything you take on that you enjoy doing, whether it's taking a car apart or painting or photography. You do one photo, you think that's fun, and then you're like, oh, you know what, if I switch the lighting, or if I get a different camera, or do a different lens, or if I do this, it's so, yeah, it becomes fun and enjoyable. And when you don't get it exactly the way it, in your head you thought it was going to go, you just think, oh, you know what, I forgot. I have this, or I know this, and I can change this. So it just becomes fun. And to me, like, going to a counselor, I told you, I just despise therapy and counseling. I don't really think that there's much worse out there. And that's my own personal opinion. I'm not telling anybody else what to think. I just despise it. And but when I did do it very, very, not that much. It was a crutch. I mean, the counselor would literally say, "Okay, so if you're going throughout your week and something upsets you or triggers you, let's just write it down and talk to you about it in our session." So it was just like, I'm just working all week for me to write this down, for us to talk about this in this session, and then we get through one of the, what she would call a trigger or something, and then we're on to the next thing. So when this on these phone calls with you, the work that I put in between, I'm telling you, is a lot. Like, I do a lot, but it's not stressful on me. It's super enjoyable. But I'll admit that the first like 8 to 9 months were very stressful on me. I thought, I can't do this. I have dishes to do. I have all these other things. I've got a family to tend to. I don't have space for this. So that's when I put it into the science, the science category, where it's 9 to 9:45. I'll listen, and then I'll try my best to incorporate this in. And that did not work for me. That was not, I was not gonna, if I would have kept doing, if I was doing today what I would have done at the beginning, I would not be where I am today. I would not have made the progress. I had to decide at some point, I am sick of this, and I'm sick of this. I don't want to live like this anymore. I'm wasting so much time with turmoil and disagreements with people, or disagreements and stress and anxiety in my own head. I'm so sick of living like this. And I was so angry for a while, and I'm becoming to accept it. But I was so angry that I was taught these things at a young age. I had to really overcome that one. Or am I working to overcome that one? Uh, that, I thought, enough is enough. I'm taking ownership of my own life, and that's that. I am going to do this, and everything you say makes sense. That's the thing. Like, all of the videos, and even if something doesn't make sense in a video or article that you say, I always just write it down, and I think, okay, go back in a few days, think about what he said, and go back in a few days, and see what pieces you're missing. And what piece are you missing? So then I would take keywords from the part that you said that didn't maybe make sense to me, and I would search those words in locals or on YouTube, and I would get a video or an article that had those words, and I would try to put the puzzle together. And sometimes it took me a few weeks. Sometimes a few 3 weeks later, after you said something to me, I'd be like, Brian, I got it. I got it. I got it. You can't believe it, but I got it. I got it on my own. I got it.
I forgot that that was one of the things you did. I think you're the only person who said to me that's what you've done. So just to reiterate, she would be caught on a particular topic that wasn't clicking for her. So she would go into the last symptom, either on YouTube or in our locals group, and she would search for those keywords. So it was very fine-tuned. It was a very fine-tuned approach. It wasn't just grabbing an episode here and there at random. She would work on a topic until it would click for her. You see the type of work that Ava is doing. She's not finished yet. She's still working on this, but this is the type of spirit and work that she's been doing. She's well on her way. I said, you, there's a couple. There's you, Ava, and then there's another member in our group who I think of as like the next Shamala. You remember, a lot in the audience might remember our dear friend Shamala, who I think of as like an ambassador for the Last Symptom. She does her own podcast and stuff now. Very proud of her. Worked with me several years back, and man, had a slow start, but once she really got off, my goodness, her progress and her authentic recovery happened pretty fast. So I think if you like that, Ava, I think there's another feller we got in our group I think of like that. But the same is true for all of these people, for Shamala, for Ava here, for this other person I'm thinking about. They work hard. They're doing their part. I'm sharing these things because this is what Ava says has helped her, and if that helps you, then I want you to know about it.
Well, yeah, I see, sometimes on the locals there, you posting about the lost cause, and I cannot preface to you enough that I thought that I was a lost cause. I had at one point just deemed that the best thing I can do is just manage, my life and manage what's going on around me, because it's not possible to have inner peace. And the peace that I have been experiencing particularly the last past few months, and it's just getting more and more and more and more often, is well worth all the work. But I definitely had the same slow start, and then just started to just skyrocket. Same thing. But it's been 2 years now, so but 2 years of a lot of work. But when I see that lost cause, you're not a lost cause. In my opinion, you're only a lost cause when you're dead. So if you're still breathing, you are not a lost cause. You have a choice. You have a choice that you can make. And the choice is, either to suffer being unhealthy or emotionally unhealthy, or it's to suffer through the first really treacherous, hard work of becoming healthy, emotionally healthy. But one of them is going to end you up in a really good spot, and one of them you're not.
You're the one that come up with or told me the term front loading, right?
Yeah, front loading. Yeah, front loading. Yeah. Once you front load, the rest just starts to click into place, and that's where I started to become captivated. Yeah. So if you front load, and which means like doing all of the hard work first, take the hardest task first. And for me, it was inherent value. Finally coming to grips that I had inherent value, which was probably what my slow lead up was. It took me about 8-9 months to even come to grips with inherent value. And once I started to get that's when I started to be able to chip away faster. That one was really, really, really tough for me. But you were the one who just kept saying, "Oh, yeah, Ava, go back and go over your inherent value. Just really focus there." Kept going there because I kind of just wanted to spider web out to other places, and you just said, "Ooh, go back to inherent value. Go back," and I'm like, "Come on now." So, so that was where I really, after I kind of got that's when I started to really make a lot of progress. But yeah, you're not a lost cause unless you're dead. If you're dead, then well, that was that. But if you're still breathing, you still got a chance.
You heard it from Ava herself, ladies and gentlemen. Like I say, I think this is going to be a really information, insight heavy, practical advice heavy episode for a lot of people. I really appreciate the time you're spending with me today. Before we close, let's just kind of get a sense of what your weekend's going to look like. You got any big plans?
No, not for the weekend. Nope. I'm just really trying. You know what? I have a sewing project. That's the one thing I can think of. I wanted to sit down with my daughter in front of the sewing machine. There's a sewing project I wanted to do with her.
What kind of sewing machine do you got? Do you have like a big, serious sewing machine, or do you have like a?
No, no, no. I just have a regular sewing machine. No.
Um, I have been thinking about getting myself a sewing machine. Anything that helps me be like self sufficient. I like learning skills like that. And I'm a pretty good sewer by hand, but
Okay.
I've never had a machine.
I do not, I think it's like I can't remember the one name, but there are some really heavy duty ones. You don't need a big heavy duty ones. Those are more for like upholstery and industrial. So if it's just mending or using lightweight cotton, a regular sewing machine. I like Brother. I like mine is a Brother brand. Yeah.
So that's your project with your daughter. You said you're going to
Yeah.
show her some things.
Some, show her some sewing.
Well, express my greetings to the rest of the family, and I thank them also for allowing me to steal you away for this hour and 20 minutes. I hope they like it.
Thank you.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, we'll catch you next time. Thanks for joining us here on The Last Symptom, and I'll see you next time.